tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhaṃ Dhammaṃ Sanghaṃ Namasami. Blessings and good evening, everybody. This period of the COVID pandemic has got us used to hearing about statistics of how many people have caught COVID in Melbourne or in other parts of the world, how many people have recovered, how many people have died. In Buddhist thinking, you would say all these statistics are like messages from the devas, devadutas, heavenly messengers. It was this that prompted the Buddha himself, before he was a Buddha, when he was a bodhisattva, to leave his comfortable home in one of the ruling families of India to go out and live in relatively uncomfortable conditions in the forest. It was recognizing the basic truths of life, that we're surrounded by and bound up with aging, sickness and death. One can't escape, just as one can't escape from the news about COVID, one can't escape from the actual conditions of aging, sickness and death. Of course, whether there's COVID in the world or not, aging, sickness and death are carrying on. For anyone who's born, aging, sickness and death must follow. No way around it, however much we like to distract ourselves from these truths, hide them away, not talk about them, censure people who do talk about them. Sometimes as a monk you talk about death and people kind of look at you as though you're introducing some bad luck into their life. But it's just truth, isn't it? It's just reality. And I think one of the statistics is every day in the world about 150,000 people die. Only a small percentage is from COVID. Mostly it's from other illnesses like heart disease, strokes, cancer and so on. That's a huge amount of people every day. Of course, more people are born than die. It's another question people ask, is where do all these people come from who are being born? Maybe over 250,000 are born every day, on average. So more seem to be born than are dying. And the Buddhist answer is, well, they come from other realms. It's not just humans being recycled, reborn, it's also beings from other realms. But we're surrounded by, a state of constant change in our own bodies and in the world around us. And nothing we can do can, in the normal sense of the word, can get rid of that fact. We can develop a lot of technology and knowledge, gain a lot of knowledge and skills, and develop a lot of means to control nature and make our lives as comfortable and healthy as possible, good diet and good medication and so on. But still, aging, sickness and death is constantly just on our shoulder. One of the young visitors was saying, well, now we can land a spaceship on Mars we've actually now landed a few spaceships on Mars, but apparently the latest one is a really good one. It can pinpoint where it wants to land, and it'll be able to give us all kinds of information about Mars, which is it's a wonderful bit of technology, and we'll get more information that may help us in various ways in the way we live in the world. But at the same time, what will you meet in Mars? Will you meet what you meet on Earth? Old age, sickness and death. If we ever manage to get a human being to Mars, they're still going to get old age, sickness and death. There'll be no escape. Somehow, by reaching for the stars, we have this sort of dream we'll reach some kind of eternal life or something different. But I think the Buddha pointed out, we won't. That's not the way you get beyond the suffering of aging, sickness and death, simply by traveling to the edge of the universe. People have tried that already. Devas and Buddhist monks being able to meditate and then travel through astral travel to the end of the universe, and they still didn't get beyond aging, sickness and death. Or maybe we hope we'll meet aliens who can save us and solve all our problems, but the one thing you can know about any alien life form that comes along is still going to be subject to old age, sickness and death. It really does envelop the whole universe, this basic truth of the conditioned nature of existence. We're all, everyone, every last one of us, and every last bug and every last alien is subject to aging, sickness and death. The only ones who are not subject to this are ones who reach Nibbana, and that's where the Buddhist path, the Buddhist teachings come from. The mind of the Buddha who, having realized the limitations of human existence, went out to seek something outside of aging, sickness and death, and that turns out to be what we call Nibbana, or the deathless. You could say the ageless, or the deathless. Cultivating the Eightfold Path to the full realization of the nature of this world as conditioned, and thereby, you might say, tiring of attachment to the world, and the mind gaining liberation through clear knowledge and insight of the way things are. And the very last teaching the Buddha gave to the monks before he died was, all formations are impermanent. So strive on with heedfulness, apamada. And this theme runs through all the teachings of the Buddha, constantly reminding us, just like the COVID statistics, reminding us that aging, sickness and death is always there. But not just sitting there with that knowledge, but using that knowledge as a way to gain some wisdom and reflection and a sense of urgency to practice for liberation, to really understand how to free our mind from attachment to that which is subject to impermanence, is impermanent. Whether it's a human body, a human mind, feelings, memories, thoughts, sense consciousness, they're all impermanent. And seeing that, then the Buddha and all those enlightened beings since the time of the Buddha have pursued this path, the Eightfold Path, Noble Path, to gain knowledge and insight into the way things are, to free their mind from delusion. So you might say the journey of the Buddha and the enlightened ones was an inner journey, rather than investing a lot of time and energy in getting to Mars and not putting down the scientists and engineers and people who have done that. It is an achievement, but the Buddha's achievement was to go inwards, to find inner peace through clarity, wisdom, and removing delusion from his mind. He thought ultimately that's going to be more useful for him, and then understanding that how to do that is more useful for humanity. And perhaps it's a testament to how beneficial his teachings have been, is that we're still remembering and practicing them thousands of years after he lived. And maybe they'll be around for a few thousand more years, we hope. And we can still benefit from these teachings every day of our life, because they're constantly directing us back to the truth, the impermanent nature of our life. It brings up the question, because we are living a life that is bound up with impermanence, one day we will have to die and separate from everything we love and like. How should we prepare for that? Often we'd rather not think about death or separation. We'd rather hide it away under the carpet or put it in the cupboard for a rainy day. But the Buddha encouraged us to recollect the impermanence of life every day as a way to get our mind clear, put it into perspective, and develop skillful attitudes how to live in the world when you do see that it's impermanent, life is impermanent. Then it brings you to really value the life that you have, the time that you have. And we don't know how long we've got. We don't know when we'll die or how we'll die, but we do know we will die for sure. And the Buddha encouraged us to just bring that to mind at least once a day, and ideally many times a day, as a way to bring up understanding of how we're relating to the world, what we're doing. Because so much of our lives we see how we're just caught into the rush of desires and wanting to get things, always thinking that there's something we need to get to be happy. When I get this, then I'll be happy. When I do that, I'll be successful, I'll be happy. Always chasing these more worldly ambitions and goals, getting a job, making money, finding the right partner, getting the house, doing this, doing that, going here, going there, and so on. But because this is all bound up with this body and mind, which are impermanent, we have to at the same time remember that everything we attach to in life is one day going to separate from us. And what does death mean? It means, number one, you lose this body. This won't be here forever. And even before we die, it's going downhill. As we're getting older, things don't work so well as you get older. Your eyes go, your ears go, your sense faculties go. You get more aches and pains, and various things go wrong with the internal organs and so on. You even lose your height. After the age of 50 or something, you start getting smaller again. The first part of your life you're getting taller, and the last part of your life you're getting shorter. Your bones shrink. So physically, it's downhill all the way. But then all the other things we know and identify with in life are also separating from us, some slow, some quick. People we know come into our lives and they move away. Some get sick, some unfortunately die before we do. Experiences we have, places we've been somewhere once and we can remember it, but then we never return there. Different activities we're involved with and so on. We're constantly experiencing things, and those experiences we have for a while and then they slip by. They're gone. And we can never turn the clock back. So reflecting like this, reflecting on death, on impermanence, maybe one benefit is it really makes you appreciate the good experiences you do have, the good things, the good in yourself, the good in others, the good fortune you've had, because you realize how fragile it is and how conditions can change so quickly. That might include, coming in contact with the Buddhist teachings, the Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha, how easily we could have missed it. Missed the bus. We could have been born somewhere we just never exposed to what the Buddha taught, never met with Sangha, never had the opportunity to learn the Dhamma. That could so easily have happened. And even though we can recognize we're fortunate to have encountered the Dhamma, these teachings, well, how long can we guarantee we have a chance to practice them or continue to practice them? We don't know how long we'll be here. So reflection on impermanence and death, it brings an immediacy to our life. Every moment is valuable, every day is important, because you never know, it might be your last. It brings you this sense of urgency to the practice. Sometimes we recommend even for when people are meditating and they're struggling with a mind that's full of restlessness, anxiety, always thinking and thinking, never peaceful, to use the reflection on death as a way to just quieten the mind down, to let go of a lot of the unnecessary thinking that sort of plagues us, habitual and accumulated thinking and agitation of mind. When you bring up the thought of death, it stops the mind, doesn't it? Ajahn Chah used to say, if you're finding you're meditating, you can't make your mind peaceful or mindful of the breath, well, just stop breathing for a while. Hold your breath. Just like as if you were underwater, swimming underwater. Hold your breath. It brings you right back to the present moment, doesn't it? Because if you don't start breathing again, you will die. Because death is simply the breath stops, that's death. So that will cut through any thought, however important the thought is about business, money, people, health, work, whatever. When you stop yourself breathing for a few moments, it will cut through those thoughts and make you see, those thoughts are not so important, they are impermanent. The only one thought you'll have is, when am I going to start breathing again? When will I allow myself to breathe? So you hold your breath for 30 seconds or a minute, or whatever time seems appropriate. And then for a while, you've regained your mindfulness of the breathing. Your mind is back in the present moment, and you get a new perspective on all that mental agitation that seems so disturbing at that time. You've let it go, if only temporarily. You could say meditation is a practice in letting go by seeing the impermanent nature of your sense contact, your thinking mind, your sensory experience. You're letting it go by focusing your mind on one thing, say the breath, and bringing up this quality of inner knowing. There's a famous teaching the Buddha gave. He said, what I teach you, monks, is just enough to get you to liberation, to nibbana. He's walking through the forest, and he picked up a handful of leaves, and he compared the leaves in his hand to the leaves in the forest, saying which is more. Obviously the leaves in his hand are less than the leaves in the whole of the forest. He said, well, these are equivalent to the teachings I give you just to get you to liberation. I know a lot more than this. What I know is equivalent to all the leaves on the floor of the forest. But what I teach you is the important stuff to get you to liberation. We're in that same position every day, because nowadays we have computers and mobile phones at our fingertips every day, and it's like we're constantly exposed to all the leaves in the forest, all the knowledge of the world. Except for when Google or Facebook cut you off for a day or two, then everyone starts complaining. But normally speaking, we've got this access now to every kind of knowledge, entertainment, distraction. So it's like all the leaves in the forest. But the simple truth that the Buddha pointed to is still there. What we need to overcome our suffering is just equivalent to the leaves in the hand, not all the leaves in the forest. So we have to learn how to manage all that information technology and the statistics and the information we get from the world these days. You have to learn how to put things down. That's why meditation is such a valuable experience. If you give a bit of time in your day to meditation, you're putting the phone or the computer down, you're stopping all these other activities and information gathering exercises and all the work and activity that you're normally involved with, and you just sit still or walk. You can do walking meditation or sitting meditation and just sit still or walk quietly, not looking for any further information other than what's coming up in your own experience at that time, your own body and mind. And think about it, when you are getting close to death, whenever that may be, what you have at your fingertips, your mobile phone, your computer, won't be that important or relevant anymore. You won't need to be contacting everybody and Googling all this stuff anymore. If you're close to death, what will be most important is how peaceful your mind is. And so that's why the Buddha gave these teachings. He said, what is the most important thing for a human being is your mind and how well you look after it from moment to moment through your day and then through your life. Everything else takes second place. It's not that the rest of these things are unimportant, but you have to get your priorities right, because one day you're going to have to separate from everything. And this is why they say when you practice meditation, it's almost like rehearsing for death. Rehearsing letting go of everything, because one day you will have to experience that, and there's no way around it. So when you practice meditation for a period of time, you close your eyes, turn your mind to follow the feeling of the in-breath and the out-breath. You're practicing letting go, just in the same way as when one day you'll have to face the last moment of your life. It'll be exactly the same, but you're doing it in a way that you're learning from the experience. You're bringing up mindfulness and contemplating what's going on as you meditate. And you see, I can let go of sights, sounds, taste, smell, touch. I can bring my attention inwards just to watch the mind. Of course, maybe there still be many thoughts and emotions and memories popping up into your mind, but because you use the meditation as a way to anchor your mind with mindfulness, with an object such as the breath or the word Buddho, you can see the impermanent nature of everything else. How thoughts come and go, memories come and go, sight, sound, taste, touch, smell, just come and go. They're not lasting. And this gives you some real steadiness of mind. Your mindfulness leads on to samadhi, sense of well-being, calm, and steadiness, stillness, steadiness of mind. And it's that steadiness of mind that's so valuable for human beings, because much of our time we're being overwhelmed by all this information, all the stuff we get from other people and our computer technology and our experiences in the world. It overwhelms us, agitates us, puts us into moods, highs and lows. We get excited and interested, and then we get bored, we become happy, we become unhappy with all this information, especially if we are not filtering it and not establishing mindfulness. Things overwhelm us all the time, pull us around, pull our minds around. But when you're practicing meditation, you're regaining control of your mind. It's a term we use often, is regain control of my life. Things have become too chaotic, too diffuse, and caught up into too much stuff and so on. Regaining control is when you bring up mindfulness and you allow your mind to let go of the endless sense contacts, thoughts, feelings, emotions. You see them, you know them, but you're establishing mindfulness in the middle of all that, so you can let go and develop a new perspective that these things can be let go of. you will have to let go of them anyway at the end of your life. But why not learn that skill now, so that then you're less bothered as you get older in life. As you go on through your life, you don't have to be quite so bothered by it, all the things that can bother human beings. You might say this is taking care of yourself, taking care of your mind, taking care of your life in the best possible way, and preparing for dying in the best possible way. Because when you practice like this, you become used to seeing and observing impermanence. The impermanence of your body, the feelings that you experience, pleasant and unpleasant, painful and comfortable, comfort, discomfort. Our mind is constantly observing that through the day. Often we're only half aware. As we change postures and feel hungry and then eat and then feel tired and sleep and then wake up. We're constantly moving between feelings of pleasure and pain and only half aware. But when you develop more mindfulness and contemplate these things, well, you notice that's the way a human body is. And you get used to not letting it overwhelm you. The pain, the pleasures, not getting in, the Buddha's word was intoxicated with the pleasure and the pain of the world. Imagine if you are getting towards the end of your life, if you have some insight into that, some skill with that, it's going to be so beneficial to be able to develop a good attitude, a wise attitude to pain that may come up for whatever physical condition you may have. As we get older, we're bound to have some illness, some pain. And so often, unfortunately, people, they don't know how to look after their mind, so they just react with aversion the whole time, constantly annoyed, irritated, or thoroughly miserable because of the painful changes taking place in the body as it ages or as it gets sick. There's only so much we can do to distract ourselves from the suffering of a human body. When we're young, it's easy. We move around all the time and we find interesting things to do. But as we get older, it's harder to escape. Even when you have the interesting things to do, maybe that pain is still there in the back of your consciousness, just nagging away. So rather than just trying to distract ourselves all the time, which ultimately is an exercise that will fail, why not come to understand it as just the way things are? Come to understand painful feelings as painful feelings, things that arise into our experience and then pass away, arise and pass away, and that are not self. You're learning not to take ownership of every feeling, identify with it so strongly that it makes us angry, but just knowing it as an experience, but then letting go of the aversion. I often remember one Buddhist who I visited a few years ago who was suffering from terminal cancer, and he'd been so miserable fighting his cancer in the early stages. He'd already been warned that it was probably terminal, but he just had this hope that he'd beat it and he would be able to get away from it, get over it, come back just as before, be stronger than it. Had all the sort of quite commonly held goals that people diagnosed with cancer have. But it was actually making him miserable because he was losing that battle. He set it up as a battle between him and his cancer. And he was getting angry with himself for not recovering, getting angry with his work because he said, I'm going to be coming back to work, but ultimately his job let him go because they knew he wouldn't be coming back. Angry with the hospital and the doctors and nurses who couldn't treat him and cure him. Angry with his family who were caring for him but couldn't cure him. But after a while he had this realization that's not the way to go. The way to go is to let go. Accept what's happening to the body, especially because the doctors have said there's nothing more they can do for him. There's no treatment that will do anything successful. They could alleviate the pain a bit, so he had painkillers, but they couldn't treat it or cure it. So just accepting that fact, accepting the impermanence of a human body, a human life, accepting the fact that he would have to separate from all the loves and things he wanted in life and the good things he aspired to, his dreams, his hopes, he would have to separate from that. But coming to terms with that, he said, was the best thing he ever did in his life, because it changed everything, changed his whole attitude. Instead of fighting the illness, he just came to terms with it and focused his mind purely on kindness and compassion for himself as a sufferer from cancer, and then particularly the people around him. So forgiving the work who had given him, let him go, forgiving the doctors who couldn't cure him, forgiving his family who looked after him so well but couldn't cure him. And he said it was just a funny thing, once he started doing that, then he got a lot more visitors when he was at home, in bed. He was very weak, he was in bed most of the time. Previously he'd been so angry, nobody wanted to go near him. Out of love and a sense of duty, his family members looked after him, but they didn't like to spend too much time with him. He was so grumpy. But once he realized that there's no point being angry about something you can't change, then he got all these visitors coming, and they all felt so proud to know him and so happy to visit him, even though he was dying and everyone knew he was dying. It was a simple attitude change, coming to accept impermanence, accept something that he didn't want, not trying to hide from it, run away from it, distract himself from it, but just meeting it with mindfulness and a wholesome state of mind. He realized that was far more important to him. So he said he found more happiness in his cancer than he had before. Even though it's not what he wanted, he learned from the experience. This is what the Buddha is encouraging us to do. He's not saying, he wasn't fooling us, he wasn't trying to, cover over the truth or hide the truth. The Buddha said, this is the nature of human existence. We have to face old age, sickness and death. But the important thing is look after your mind and train yourself in that. Prepare yourself for ultimate separation from everything you love and like, which is what death means, isn't it? You separate from your body, your family, your possessions, all the good things you like in life. Ultimately, you must leave them. So preparing that as you go along through your life, rather than waiting for the last minute and hoping for the best, which doesn't usually work out that well. So the Buddha encouraged us every day, reflect. I'm subject to aging, sickness and death. This is normal, I can't escape. Every day the news is reminding us of it. COVID is still big in the news. Every day we're reminded that human beings get ill, get sick and die. In the time of the Buddha, there's the famous story of Kisa Gotami, the lady who couldn't accept the death of her baby. As you would imagine, if you have a baby and your baby dies, it must be the biggest shock for a young mother. But she couldn't accept it, so she fooled herself into thinking her baby is just asleep with illness and there must be someone who can cure it, bring it back, wake it up and cure it from its unconscious state. So she's wandering around the town looking for a doctor to cure her baby. Everyone knows the baby is dead, but they can't tell her because they can see she's just so shocked. She's out of her mind with the shock of the experience. But somebody tells her to go to the Buddha, because often people saw the Buddha like a doctor. He's got a cure for every kind of suffering. So she went with the hope, maybe he can help me. And so the Buddha, very smart, devised a way to get her to realize her wrong attitude, misunderstanding of truth, and just said, yeah, I can help you. Because she was asking, do you have any medicine? He said, yeah, there's maybe something can help you if you can get a mustard seed, but it must come from a household where nobody's died. And in her grief and worry for her kids, she's so determined to carry through the instruction of the Buddha. So she went from house to house with her baby, clutching her baby, asking, "Do you have a mustard seed? The Buddha says this will help my baby recover." They said, "Sure, we've got mustard seeds here." "Oh, but by the way, has anyone died here?" Of course, every household, somebody had died of something. An uncle, an auntie, a grandparent, even sometimes children had died at some point in that household's history. Somebody had died, because that's nature. So eventually she woke up to the truth. Every household in the town has mustard seeds, but every household in the town, somebody has died at some point. It's just normal. And she finally came to accept, maybe my own baby is dead, I'll have to accept that. Sometimes the truth is hard, but it's liberating. It can liberate us from grief, distress, denial, trauma, but we have to be willing to face it and look at it and learn from it. And this is why the Buddha encouraged us to meditate every day on the theme of impermanence. Bring your attention inwards. See how impermanent your body is. It's always changing. The feelings are arising, passing away. Sensations, sense contact, thoughts, memories, perceptions. How lasting are any of them? As we bring our mind to see that, then we practice letting go, and what remains is this mindfulness and insight. Clear insight into the nature of what we call the 5 khandhas, the physical body and the mental khandhas, feelings, memories, thoughts, formations, sense consciousness. They're impermanent, conditioned things. Bringing your mind to see that means that what's left is just the knowing of that truth. And this is where the steadiness of the mind comes, both from the samadhi and then from the insight. Just knowing this is the way things are. Whether you're healthy, it's true. Whether you're unhealthy or ill, it's still true. And if you are unhealthy or dying, then this is what we can use to deal with that, to face up to that fact. We go to the steadiness of the mind. So for someone who's practiced followed the Buddhist path, practiced the teachings maybe for many years, just remembering the Buddha or a teacher brings you that steadiness of mind and that insight almost instantly. This is why when we do face crisis in life, particularly health issues or the onset of death, thinking of the Buddha, thinking of a teacher, somebody who has practiced this and liberated themselves from their attachments, brings the mind so much peace so quickly. We have as I said, an anchor in the mind. You can think of the Buddha, go to the breath, and you understand everything ultimately has to be let go of. Best of all is if we've experienced a bit of that letting go through our own efforts in our own practice. Meditating, getting to a point where the mind is totally peaceful on the inside, not seeking anything on the outside, not seeking sight, sound, taste, smell, touch, not wanting anything, not caught up into plans and dreams about the future, just knowing the peace of the mind itself internally. It's probably the best insight of all to give us an understanding of the impermanence of the world. If we haven't achieved that, well, just thinking of the Buddha or Ajahn Chah or any other enlightened teacher can bring us to the same point sometimes. Brings up the faith and the steadiness of mind. So the Buddha used to say, if you're facing death and you're afraid and you don't know what to do, well, think of the Buddha. Such a powerful, pure thought, thinking of the Buddha. Steadies your mind, gives you the strength to face difficulties of physical hardship or mental hardship, loss, separation. Gives you the strength, gives you the mindfulness, gives you the sense of well-being that comes from wholesome states of mind arising. When we have a wholesome state of mind, so you think of the Buddha, you think of the Dhamma, you think of the Sangha, that's what pushes away fear, anxiety that you might be having at that time. Pushes away the mental agitation. Helps us to cope with difficulty. Earlier today we were talking in the monastery about death, and somebody said, do you know anything about ghosts? Do ghosts exist? There's another aspect of death, isn't it? What happens after you die? Does everything just finish? Or do you go on? Are you reborn somewhere? So in Buddhism we teach about rebirth. There's the lower realms, animal realm, ghost realm, demon realm, hell realm, and then all the higher realms, heaven realms, Brahma realms. Sort of in the middle is the human realm. Maybe the best realm to be born in is the human realm. You have the opportunity, if you're born human, you have the opportunity to hear the Dhamma, then you have this opportunity to both contemplate pleasure and pain, happiness and suffering, and transcend it. Someone was asking about ghosts and do they exist? Well, it's difficult to talk about things or prove things that you can't see, but monks don't have much doubt about beings in other realms. Because the more you practice, the more people tell you their experiences, or the more experiences you have, then you sometimes have direct experience of beings in other realms. And so you doubt it less and less the more you meditate, the more you practice. I was quoting one time when we had some teachers come from Thailand, came to stay. One of them, Lumpur Sopar. We took him to the Great Ocean Road, and we were staying in some cabins with the lay people generously provided us with some cabins in the forest, off from the coast, in the bush. Cabins which are a bit like monks' kutis in the forest. We actually thought the place we were staying would make a good forest monastery. And it's quite common when monks go into a new place, they often stir up what's there. So if there are ghosts or beings, good beings, evil beings, devas, ghosts, whatever, they're often stirred up by the arrival of monks. Perhaps it's because monks meditate. Their mind is on a slightly different level than the average person, maybe. So anyway, Lumpur Sopar was going to bed one night, the first night, in this new place, in his cabin, and just as he's falling asleep, he had this clear image of a little boy coming into his room and standing at the bottom of his bed, scolding him. This little boy, maybe a 10-year-old boy, started poking his finger at him, saying, you're just a smelly old monk. The naughty boy, he didn't like him. He knew instantly, this is a ghost, this is somebody who's died, who is still not very happy and still a bit mischievous. Maybe they were like that when they were alive. So he said, don't be too mischievous, I'm a Buddhist monk and I keep a very good level of sila and I practice compassion, I don't wish harm to anybody, you shouldn't be scolding or insulting me. And I've also got a picture of Ajahn Chah in my monk's bag, and Ajahn Chah is an enlightened being, and you wouldn't want to start insulting one of his students. I'm his student. And the little boy looked puzzled, and then at that moment, a little girl floated in, perhaps a little bit older than the boy, all in white. Whereas the boy was dressed in kind of raggedy clothes, she was dressed all very nicely in white, and she had flowers, a flower garland on her head. And she kind of flew in, he said, a bit like Tinkerbell. And she told the boy off. He said, you shouldn't be telling off the monks. You're doing something very bad there. You should get out of here. So the little boy ran away. And then the little girl flew into the monk's bag to have a look at Ajahn Chah's picture. There's just one ghost story that we were talking about today. But it just makes you think, maybe when you die, it's not the end of the story. So how do you want to die? Do you want to die with a wholesome state of mind, or are you going to let your negativity overwhelm you when you come to the last day of your life? This is why we say practicing the Dhamma is practicing for death, because you don't know when the last day of your life will be. What you're thinking every day is karma. It's you're clinging to people and things with love and hate, and that's like karma that's conditioning your mind every day. And it's coming up to the end of your life. That's going to be there, coming up for you. So how do you prepare for your death? Well, maybe make sure at least that you've got no anger sitting in the back of your mind somewhere. Is there somebody you still have a grudge against? It's a very common experience. They say when people are close to their death, they remember all their grudges, unfinished business. If there's someone you're still angry with, well, often it comes up. A vision of their face or a memory of something they said or done. It can come up and put you in a bad mood as you die. Do you want that? So if there's someone you're still angry with, well, forgive them now. Don't wait till the last day of your life. It might be too late. Forgive them. Let go. If they've hurt you, forgive them. If you've hurt someone and you're feeling regret about your past actions, well, in your mind at least apologize to that person and determine to make amends so that you can let go of your regrets. Loves and hates, they stick with us. If we're not mindful, they can overwhelm us towards the end of our life. Maybe it's our loves, the things we love in life, we don't want to separate from them. So we're as if clinging on before we die, not wanting to let go. Literally, your mind is just stuck on some favorite car or house or bit of land or pile of money somewhere, your wealth, or it could be a person, some person you love them so much you don't want to leave. You don't want to accept the inevitability of death. Think about this now. Prepare for this now. What are you still attached to in this world? Can you let go of it? An exercise we sometimes give people is, if today is your last day of your life, you are definitely going to die tonight. What are you still attached to? What will come up in your mind? What would that bring up for you? You really think about it. See if you can clear it up now as an exercise, a rehearsal for the one day when you really will die. This is why we practice dana and charity and practice letting go rather than always accumulating things. Practice kindness, forgiveness with other people rather than holding on to anger, ill will. Practice letting go of the things of this world. Funnily enough, one of the things people say is the more you let go, the more you appreciate the good in this world. The good things you've had, the good experiences you've had, the good in other people. People often associate letting go with some kind of, the ending of everything, and you have nothing left. If I let go of everything, I'll have nothing left. Life will be miserable. Actually, letting go leads you to appreciate things from a place of clarity and peace and well-being. It's much easier to appreciate the good in the world and what you do have and what you have had. When you're clinging, you don't see the good in it anymore, do you? You're just clinging on its blindness, its delusion. So maybe incorporate that into your meditation sometimes. Just reflect on the possibility of your own death, what it will bring up for you. Is there any unfinished business in your mind that you need to let go of? People you need to see, to talk to, maybe thank them for the help they've given you in your life. There's probably a whole heap of people you've forgotten to thank recently or show your appreciation. Maybe this is a good time to do it. So sometimes they get it wrong if you go up to someone out of the blue and say, "Oh, I've really appreciated the way you've helped me through my life." They say, "What's happening? Are you going to die?" It's not that. I mean, you are going to die, but it's not necessarily that you're about to die. But do it anyway. Maybe you can have a joke with them if they say that. But clear up the unfinished business in your mind. Thank everybody, wish everybody well, forgive everybody, clear up your regrets, clear up your attachments, then you're ready. And you can do a lot more good in the world too. And maybe it'll prolong your life even, because all the good you do brings you a sense of well-being, which all the science tells us boosts your immune system. So maybe you'll end up living longer. There's quite a few cases I remember of people who have thought they were going to die, so they've gone off to the monastery to meditate, do good, do more charity and dana, and keep the precepts and meditate, and they ended up living a lot longer than they ever thought because they were so happy. It doesn't always work out like that, but it's worth thinking about. So today I'm just giving you a few reflections on impermanence and death, and I encourage you all to bring that into your practice because it might actually liberate you from a lot of suffering. Anyway, for now I wish you all well. May you all progress in the Dhamma and find peace and find happiness.